What if I told you there are campsites so dangerous, so cursed, that the rangers don't even bother warning people anymore? They just erase them from the maps, as if pretending they never existed. And what if, by accident, you pitched your tent on one of them? That's exactly what happened the summer we drove out to Red Elk National Forest. We weren't thrill seekers. We weren't ghost hunters. We were just 5 friends trying to escape the city for a long weekend. It was late August, the kind of time when nights are cool enough to breathe again, but the days still cling to summer's heat. There was me, Daniel, quiet, a little skeptical about camping but happy to get away. My girlfriend, Leah, the planner, who insisted we bring maps and backup batteries for everything. Then there was Mason, my oldest friend, loud and reckless, the type who thought rules existed just to be broken. He dragged along his cousin, Aaron, who was quieter, more observant. And finally, Alex, our comic relief, always cracking jokes, the glue that kept us from tearing into each other. We should have stuck to the official sites. The ranger station had pointed us toward 3 marked campgrounds, each with restrooms, bear lockers, and fire pits. But Mason wasn't interested. Too crowded, he said, rolling his eyes as he leaned over the dusty map. Come on, we didn't drive 6 hours just to pitch a tent next to some screaming kids roasting marshmallows. We'll go off trail. Find our own spot. Leah wasn't having it. The marked sites are marked for a reason, she said. Bears. Safety. Remember? Mason grinned. Or maybe they're hiding the good ones. The real campsites. That was his argument. And stupidly, I went along with it. We parked at the trailhead around noon, loaded our packs, and started hiking. The forest swallowed us quickly, towering pines, thick ferns brushing our legs, the air sharp with resin. The deeper we went, the less we saw of other hikers. Eventually, the trail forked. The official map showed only the right path, but Mason pointed left. No way this isn't leading to something cool, he said. The left path was rough, overgrown, and unmarked, but it sloped gently down toward the sound of water. After half an hour, we stumbled onto a clearing by a narrow river, flat and perfect for tents. This is it, Mason declared, dropping his pack. Our own private spot. Even I had to admit it was beautiful. The clearing was ringed with pine and cedar, the river babbling nearby. A circle of stones sat in the middle, as though someone had once used it as a fire ring. Oddly, though, the stones were blackened with soot, fresh soot, not the faded gray you'd expect. See? Mason said, as if the universe had proved him right. Other people have camped here before. It's fine. But Leah frowned. That doesn't make sense. If this site was used, why isn't it on the map? The rangers are supposed to track everything. Maybe they forgot, Alex offered, trying to lighten the mood. Or maybe they don't want us to know. He wiggled his fingers dramatically. We laughed, but Erin didn't. She was standing at the tree-line, staring at something. What is it? I asked. She shook her head quickly. Nothing. Thought I saw, never mind. We pitched our tents, built a small fire, and cooked dinner as the sun slipped behind the trees. The forest grew darker faster than expected, shadows stretching long and sharp. That's when Leah noticed something. Hey, she said, frowning at the map spread across her knees. There's no river marked here. Look. She jabbed a finger at the page. We shouldn't be anywhere near water. Not for another mile, at least. Maybe the map's old, Mason shrugged. But Leah was shaking her head. This is the updated one. 2024 edition. There's no river. Not here. The fire cracked loudly, making us all flinch. The night pressed in around us, thick with the smell of pine and the sound of rushing water. Then Alex chuckled nervously. Well, maybe we discovered a secret. Free river real estate, huh? We tried to laugh it off, but Erin hadn't moved from the tree-line. Her face was pale in the firelight. Do you guys hear that? She whispered. We all froze. At first, I thought she meant the river. But then I caught it too, faint, almost too faint to notice, but there. A sound from the woods. A low whistle. It wasn't birdsong. It wasn't wind. It was deliberate. 3 short notes, repeating. Leah's hand found mine in the dark. Mason stood, peering into the trees. Probably another camper, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Or a hiker. At night? Aaron whispered. Out here? The whistling stopped. For a moment, the only sound was the rush of the river and the crackle of the fire. Then, just as suddenly, the whistle came again. Closer. 3 short notes. And this time, whoever, or whatever, was making it, was answering back. From the other side of the clearing. The fire hissed as if it too had heard the sound, spitting embers into the night. We sat frozen, our circle of warmth and light suddenly feeling too small against the wall of black trees around us. The whistle, 3 sharp notes, steady, purposeful, still seemed to vibrate in the air. What made my skin crawl wasn't just the sound itself, but the way it had echoed. Not a natural echo, not the kind that bounces off canyon walls or deep valleys, but an answer. A reply. One whistle from somewhere in the woods, then another, clearer, sharper, coming from the opposite side of the clearing, as though something, or someone, was surrounding us. Leah's grip tightened on my hand until her nails dug into my skin. I didn't dare look at her face, I could feel her fear radiating. Alex gave a nervous laugh, too loud, the kind of laugh you make when you know you're lying to yourself. Okay, so maybe it's 2 campers messing around. You know, like a call and response thing. People do that. But no one nodded. No one agreed. Even Mason, who never turned down a chance to argue, stood silently, squinting into the shadows like he was daring them to blink first. The firelight danced across the stone circle, casting long fingers of orange against the trees. I remember thinking that just beyond that glow was a depth of blackness so complete it felt alive, pressing closer each second. Erin hadn't sat down since she'd noticed it. Her arms were crossed, shoulders tight, eyes fixed on the tree-line like she was watching something we couldn't see. That wasn't people, she whispered. Her voice was flat, cold. People don't whistle like that. Not out here. Mason finally broke the silence. He grabbed a thick branch from the ground and fed it into the fire, sparks spiraling upward. It's nothing, he said, trying for casual, but his tone was clipped, brittle. Probably hunters. Or some ranger out doing night rounds. Leah shook her head violently. No ranger would be out here. This isn't a marked site. They wouldn't waste their time. She paused, then added in a smaller voice, and they wouldn't do that. The whistling stopped again, replaced by the rushing of the river and the occasional snap of firewood. We sat waiting, each of us straining our ears for the next sound, the next sign. Minutes passed, long enough for the silence to become unbearable. Finally, Mason straightened up. Okay, he said. I'll go check. No, Leah and Erin said at the same time. Erin's voice cracked like a whip, startling all of us. Don't, she snapped. That's exactly what it wants. What wants? Mason challenged, bristling. But he didn't step forward. Erin didn't answer, only shook her head, pale and rigid. Alex, bless him, tried again to diffuse. Guys, seriously, we're freaking ourselves out. It's probably just, I don't know, some weird bird or. And then it came again. Not from the woods this time. Not distant. But close. Too close. 3 short notes, carried on the night air like a breath against the back of our necks. We all jumped, spinning toward the sound, but there was nothing, only the trees, the fire, and the curtain of shadows between them. Something shifted inside me then. It wasn't panic, not yet, but a sharp awareness that prickled every inch of my skin. Whoever, or whatever, was whistling was toying with us, watching us, choosing when to remind us it was there. Leah's voice broke the silence, barely audible. We should leave. Right now. pack up and go back to the trail. Mason scoffed, but it was weak. In the dark? We'd break our necks. Just chill, all right? We'll wait till morning. I wanted to agree with Leah, to grab our things and run, but Mason wasn't wrong. Hiking blind through a forest like this was asking for disaster. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that staying here was worse. Erin finally moved, lowering herself slowly onto a log. She was trembling, though not from the cold. "We're not supposed to be here," she said. It wasn't a plea, or a warning, but a statement of fact, like she was recalling something she had known all along. Her words lodged in my chest. "We're not supposed to be here." No one spoke after that. We ate nothing. The fire burned lower. Each of us sat in silence, listening, waiting for the next whistle. It never came. Not again that night. But I didn't sleep. I lay in our tent with Leah curled against me, her breaths quick and shallow. Every sound outside, the shifting leaves, the groan of branches, the splash of the river, felt magnified. The tent walls were too thin, the night too heavy. At some point, I must have drifted off, because I woke to gray light seeping through the nylon and the murmur of voices outside. When I crawled out, Mason and Alex were already up, arguing in low tones. Erin sat apart, arms wrapped around her knees, staring into the ashes of the fire pit. Leah followed me out, rubbing her eyes. "What's going on?" she asked. Mason gestured toward the fire ring. "Look at this. Tell me this doesn't look wrong." At first, I didn't get it. It was just blackened stones and a bed of cold ash. But then I saw what he meant. The circle wasn't the same as last night. The stones had shifted. Some were stacked higher, others leaned inward, as if arranged by hand while we slept. "I swear to God, I didn't touch it," Alex said, voice tight. "None of us did." Leah crouched closer, running her fingers over the soot. Her face drained of color. "This isn't our fire," she whispered. "The wood we burned, it's gone. This is fresh. Somebody built this after ours went out." Erin finally looked up. Her voice was steady, almost too steady. "It wants us to know it was here." The forest seemed to hold its breath around us. Then, from somewhere deep in the trees, soft, almost playful, 3 short whistles answered. The whistles didn't just echo through the trees, they seemed to curl around us, seeping into our bones. 3 short notes, light and deliberate, rising and falling as if whoever made them wasn't in any hurry. It wasn't loud. It wasn't aggressive. But it was confident. Taunting. A sound meant to remind us of our place, small, exposed, and utterly vulnerable. Mason swore under his breath, scanning the tree-line with his fists clenched. "That's it. I'm done. I'm not sitting here waiting for some backwoods creep to screw with us." He turned toward his pack, yanking it open like he expected a weapon to appear inside. But all we had were hiking knives, cheap lighters, and a canister of bear spray. Leah grabbed my arm. "We can't stay," she hissed. Her eyes were wide, frantic. "Daniel, we can't. If this is some psycho, we need to get back to the main trail before she cut herself off, glancing at Erin, who was still pale and silent. Alex tried to force a laugh, but it cracked halfway out. Okay. Let's think this through. We leave now, in daylight, we'll be fine. Right? Just head back the way we came." His words were meant to sound rational, but he was already pulling his tent poles out of the ground with shaking hands. Mason slammed his pack shut. "Damn right we're leaving. But we're not running scared like kids at a sleepover. Whoever's out there wants us freaked out. Screw that." He stood, squaring his shoulders toward the forest, as though staring into the black maze of trunks would somehow make the danger back down. But Erin spoke for the first time in hours, her voice hollow. "You don't understand," she said. Her eyes were on the rearranged stones, not on us. "It's not who. It's what." Her words froze us. There was no dramatic delivery, no hysteria. Just quiet certainty, like someone who had finally decided it wasn't worth pretending anymore. Leah crouched next to her, gripping her shoulder. "Aaron, what do you mean?" But Aaron didn't answer. Instead, she pointed at the fire ring. This was a warning. The silence that followed was suffocating. I glanced back at the stones and felt a twist of nausea. She was right, the way the rocks leaned inward, stacked just enough to look deliberate, it wasn't random. It was a message. "We see you. We touched your things while you slept. You belong to us now." "Okay, enough of this crap," Mason barked, breaking the spell. "Pack up. We're leaving." And we did, clumsily, hurriedly, stuffing gear into our packs without care. My hands shook so badly I fumbled the tent stakes 3 times before managing to collapse the nylon. Every noise in the forest seemed amplified, the snap of twigs, the murmur of the river, even the sigh of wind through the branches. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, watching. By the time we strapped our packs on, the sun was well above the trees, spilling light into the clearing. For a moment, it almost felt safe again. Almost. Mason took the lead, striding toward the overgrown path we'd come down yesterday. I followed with Leah just behind, Alex nervously humming under his breath, and Aaron at the back, dragging her feet. It didn't take long before something felt wrong. The trail didn't look the same. Where yesterday there had been a narrow path winding upward through ferns, today the ground looked different, denser, thicker, as if the forest had swallowed part of it overnight. We pressed on anyway, climbing, turning, trying to retrace our steps. But the further we went, the less familiar it became. Leah stopped suddenly, yanking me back by the wrist. "Wait," she whispered, her face pale. "Daniel, listen." At first, I didn't hear it. Just the wind, the crunch of boots on pine needles. Then I caught it, the faint trickle of water. My chest tightened. "No," Leah muttered, shaking her head. "That's impossible." We hiked away from the river. But the sound grew louder as we walked. Within minutes, the trees opened into another clearing, and there it was again. The same river. The same bank. The same circle of stones waiting in the center, exactly as we'd left it. Alex dropped his pack with a thud. No, we didn't just, this isn't," he spun in a slow circle, laughing in disbelief. "We went uphill." "Uphill? You don't go uphill and end up back at a river." Leah covered her mouth, whispering, "Oh my God, we're trapped." Mason cursed, storming past us to the fire ring. He kicked the stones, scattering them across the dirt. "There. Screw your warnings. Whoever's out there, you hear me? We're not playing your game." His voice carried through the trees, bold and defiant, but when it faded, the forest answered. 3 short whistles. Closer now. From just beyond the tree line. We froze. My heart thudded so hard it hurt, every instinct screaming at me to run. Mason stood his ground, chest heaving. "Show yourself," he bellowed. "Come on, you coward. Show me your face." The silence that followed was unbearable. Then, slowly, deliberately, the whistle came again. Not 3 notes this time. 4. 1. 2. 3. 4. It was mocking him. Aaron's voice cut through the stillness, sharp and clear. "It's not going to show itself," she said. Her eyes locked on Mason, and for the first time, her expression was something worse than fear, resignation. "It doesn't have to." Before any of us could respond, a sound erupted from the woods, branches snapping, heavy footfalls pounding through the undergrowth. Something was moving. Fast. Toward us. The forest erupted. Branches snapped like gunshots, the underbrush shuddering with the weight of something barreling toward us. My first thought was bear. The sound was too heavy, too violent to be a person. My second thought, which came colder, sharper, and far less logical, was worse, it knows we're here. "Run!" Leah screamed, And we did, packs bouncing, feet tangling in roots as we crashed blindly into the trees. Mason stayed a second longer, gripping his knife like it could make a difference, but when the sound grew louder, angrier, he bolted too. The forest became chaos. Branches whipped across my face, tearing skin. My lungs burned, legs screaming as I stumbled uphill. Behind me, Alex cursed, his voice ragged, trying to keep up. Erin didn't make a sound, only ran with a strange, unnatural focus, as though she already knew where the path would lead. Leah's hand clutched mine so tightly it hurt, but I wouldn't let go. If I let go, I knew I might never find her again. The thing behind us didn't follow in a straight line. It circled, crashing through brush, doubling back, snapping branches on all sides as though hurting us. Each time I thought we'd pulled ahead, the sound would explode from another direction, closer, deliberate. It wasn't chasing. It was driving us. We burst into another clearing, gasping, and my stomach dropped. The river. The stones. Again. No, 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 no. Alex's voice cracked. He spun in a circle, clutching his hair. We didn't even, how are we back here again? Leah dropped to her knees, sobbing into her hands. Mason hurled his knife into the dirt, chest heaving, eyes wild. This is impossible. We were running straight. Straight. He turned on Erin. You knew, didn't you? That's why you kept saying we weren't supposed to be here. What the hell do you know? Erin didn't look at him. She was staring at the treeline, shoulders trembling, her lips moving soundlessly like she was reciting something under her breath. Answer me. Mason roared, stepping toward her. Before she could, the whistle cut through the air again. This time, it came from all around us. Not one whistle. Not two. Dozens. 3 short notes, overlapping, weaving through the trees until the entire forest seemed alive with it. The sound froze us where we stood. I wanted to cover my ears, to drown it out, but I couldn't move. None of us could. It was as though the sound rooted us to the earth, holding us in place like prey beneath a hawk's shadow. And then, silence. The forest was too still, too empty. Not even the river seemed to move. Leah whispered, Daniel, look. Her hand shook as she pointed toward the stones. My mouth went dry. The fire ring was no longer scattered from Mason's outburst. It was whole again. Rebuilt. Only now, in the center, lay something that hadn't been there before. A bundle of twigs, lashed together with strips of bark. Human-shaped. A crude little figure with outstretched arms, its head tilted unnaturally to the side. Erin let out a sharp, broken sob. She covered her mouth with both hands and shook her head violently. No. Not again. Not again. Mason grabbed her by the shoulders. What the hell is going on? Tell us. Her eyes snapped to his, wide and wet. They mark you, she said. That's what it does. It watches, it waits, and then it leaves its sign. Once it leaves the sign, you don't get out. My chest turned to ice. What are you talking about? Who they? But Erin only shook her head. It's not who. It's the campsite. The campsite isn't supposed to exist. The Rangers took it off the maps for a reason. Because it doesn't let people leave. That's insane, Mason snapped. But his voice wavered, betraying the crack in his defiance. Leah was still staring at the figure in the fire ring. She whispered so softly I barely caught it. It looks like one of us. The thought made my stomach twist. It was true. The crude twigs formed a body, head, arms, legs. And the way its arms reached outward reminded me of how Mason had stood only minutes earlier, knife in hand, screaming at the trees. Alex backed away, hands raised as if the effigy might suddenly stand up. Nope. No. I'm done. We're not playing this Blair Witch crap. We pick a direction and we don't stop until we hit a road, or a ranger station, or hell, a Walmart. I don't care if we have to walk for days. But Erin shook her head, whispering like a broken record. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Mason snarled and kicked the effigy out of the ring, sending twigs scattering across the dirt. There. Problem solved. The forest answered instantly. A deep, guttural groan reverberated through the trees, like the sound of trunks straining under some great weight. The ground trembled beneath our feet, just enough to make the stones clink against one another. The air turned sharp, bitter, and for one awful heartbeat I swore I saw the shadows bend, stretching longer, reaching toward us like fingers. We didn't wait to discuss. We ran again. Not toward any trail, not toward the car, just away, away from the river, away from the stones, away from the figure. My lungs felt like fire, my throat raw, but I didn't stop. None of us did. Branches clawed at my clothes, tearing fabric. My backpack caught on a root and nearly yanked me backward before Leah pulled me free. Behind us, the groaning rose again, echoing, and with it came the whistle, 3 notes, closer and closer, as if carried on our very breath. I don't know how long we ran. Time didn't make sense anymore. At last, the trees opened and we stumbled into another clearing. Sunlight spilled across the ground, and for a moment I thought, hoped, we'd made it. Then my knees buckled. There was the river. There were the stones. And in the center of the ring stood not one figure this time, but 2. At first, I thought my eyes were tricking me. The sunlight in the clearing shimmered through the branches, making the shadows dance. But then Leah's strangled gasp confirmed it, the fire ring now held 2 figures. Not one, not scattered twigs, but 2 full effigies, twins of the first crude doll, arms outstretched, heads tilted in the same grotesque angle. The longer I stared, the worse it became. They weren't just random bundles of sticks. Each one was arranged with precision, bound with strips of bark into tight knots. Even their stances seemed deliberate, almost mocking. The first figure had looked vaguely like Mason, arms out in defiance. But now there was another. Its legs bent awkwardly, one arm lifted as if shielding its face. Recognition struck like a knife. I'd seen Alex do that exact movement when we ran through the branches, swatting them from his eyes. "Oh God," Alex whispered, following my gaze. His voice cracked. No. That's not, no." He stumbled backward until he tripped over his own pack. Mason cursed and stormed forward, rage burning away his fear. "Enough of this," he roared. He grabbed one of the figures, snapping twigs in his fists, scattering the pieces across the dirt. The crack of wood echoed too loud, too final. He kicked at the stones again, breathing hard like he could break the spell through sheer force. "Stop!" Erin screamed, voice raw and panicked. She darted toward him, grabbing his arm. "Don't touch them. You'll make it worse." Mason shoved her back. "Shut up with your cryptic crap. It's just sticks. Just goddamn sticks." But Erin's face was stricken, her eyes glassy with something beyond fear. "It's not the sticks," she said. "It's what they stand for. It's a claim. Every time it builds one, it takes more of us." Her words sent a ripple of nausea through me. Leah clutched my arm, trembling so hard I felt it in my bones. The whistle returned then, sharp, piercing, close. 3 short notes, slicing through the clearing from somewhere above. I looked up instinctively, scanning the canopy. That was when I saw it. Just for a heartbeat. A figure. High in the branches, higher than any person could climb, something crouched among the shadows. Thin limbs bent at unnatural angles, a body too long, too narrow. Its head tilted, just like the effigies, and though I couldn't make out details, I felt its eyes. Black, endless, locked on us. I blinked and it was gone. My throat tightened. I tried to speak, to warn the others, but my voice came out as a rasp. Leah squeezed my arm harder, her nails biting deep, and I realized she had seen it too. "We need to go," she whispered, barely audible. "Daniel, we need to get out now." Mason didn't listen. He stomped across the clearing, chest puffed, rage masking the terror we all felt. "Come on then," he bellowed into the trees. "You hear me? You think you're scary? Show your face, you coward. Show yourself." The forest waited. The river whispered. And then, like a response, the ground itself seemed to exhale. A wind gusted through the clearing, though the canopy above barely stirred. It was as if the air rose from the earth itself, cold and wet, curling around us like fingers. Alex began to sob, cradling his head. "This isn't real. This isn't happening." But it was. The sound returned, not just one whistle now, but many. Dozens. Surrounding us, closing in. Each came from a different direction, overlapping, weaving into a discordant chorus that turned my stomach. Some were high-pitched, almost childlike. Others were low, drawn out, mocking. The forest itself had found its voice, and it was singing to us. Leah pulled at me, tugging me toward the far side of the clearing. "We can't stay here," she begged. "Daniel, please." I wanted to run. God, I wanted to run. But something in me hesitated. Some part of me knew the forest wasn't letting us leave. No matter which way we ran, we'd find ourselves back here. The campsite was a snare, a labyrinth, and the more we struggled, the tighter it would pull. Still, standing still felt worse. So we ran again. We tore through the brush, packs forgotten, branches clung our arms and legs. The whistles followed, weaving around us, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind. Every time we thought we'd gained ground, a whistle cut us off, driving us deeper. And then the forest shifted. It was subtle at first, trunks too close together, paths curving in impossible ways. But soon it became undeniable. The trees weren't just trees anymore. They leaned, twisted, their bark gnarled into shapes that looked disturbingly like faces, hollow eyes watching as we passed. The air thickened, heavy with the smell of damp earth and rot. Leah stumbled, nearly dragging me down with her. I hauled her up, chest burning. Ahead, Mason hacked through branches with his knife, cursing. Erin lagged behind, muttering under her breath, as though chanting something only she could hear. Finally, Mason burst into another clearing, and we stumbled after him, gasping, sweating, bleeding from 100 scratches. And there it was again. The river. The stones. But this time, the effigies had multiplied. Not 2. Not 3. 5. One for each of us. The sight knocked the breath from my lungs. They stood in the circle like a grotesque audience, each shaped slightly different, each posed in a way that mirrored us. Mason's arms thrown wide in defiance. Alex crouched low, arms shielding his face. Leah clutching something close. Erin hunched, head bowed as though whispering. And me, God help me, the one in the middle stood tall, a stick arm wrapped around a smaller figure at its side. Me and Leah. Together. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The figures were crude, but there was no denying it, they weren't just effigies anymore. They were us. Behind me, Alex whimpered, Why are there 5 now? Erin's voice was almost gone, a whisper breaking on every syllable. Because now, it owns us. The whistles rose again, deafening, swelling into a cacophony that shook the leaves from the trees. And this time, they weren't distant. They were inside the clearing. The whistles rose until they no longer sounded like wind through wood, but like lungs exhaling through broken throats. It was unbearable, 100 invisible flutes shrieking in overlapping chaos. My hands clamped over my ears, but it didn't matter, the sound wasn't just outside. It was inside me, rattling through bone, vibrating behind my eyes, setting my teeth on edge until I thought they might splinter. The others staggered, clutching their heads. Leah fell to her knees, her face twisted in agony, and I dropped beside her, trying to shield her from a sound that couldn't be shielded. Mason still stood, swaying, knife clenched in his fist, blood dripping from a shallow cut across his arm where a branch had sliced him. His defiance burned as bright as before, but there was desperation in it now, a wild glint in his eyes that looked more like madness than courage. And then the sound stopped. The silence was worse. It fell over us in an instant, so complete it rang in my skull like a sudden vacuum. My breathing was too loud. My heartbeat thundered. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting. I don't know who saw it first. Maybe Leah. Maybe Alex. But I felt it before I turned, felt the way the clearing shifted, the way the shadows lengthened unnaturally along the ring of stones. It was there. Stepping into the clearing as if it had always belonged to it. A shape, tall and skeletal, its limbs impossibly thin yet strong, bending backward at angles no body should endure. The figure ducked under a branch without moving its head, its spine arching like an insect crawling out of its husk. I couldn't see its face, not really. Just an impression of hollowness, a suggestion of depth where eyes should be. Its head tilted, the same crooked angle as the effigies, as if mocking us by standing exactly as they stood. The effigies, the clearing, the river, all of it felt like props in its theater. And we were the performance. Leah gasped sharply, clutching my sleeve. Alex whimpered something that didn't sound like words, curling into himself. Erin had gone pale, whispering faster, a prayer or incantation that tumbled from her lips like she was racing against time. Mason, of course, broke the silence. You think you scare me? His voice cracked but carried anyway, jagged with fury. He lifted the knife, pointing it like a spear. You don't get to play with us. You don't get to take us. The figure moved. Not fast. Not slow. Just deliberate. One long limb extended forward, pressing into the dirt with fingers that looked more like roots than bones. The ground seemed to recoil, grass yellowing where it touched. It took another step, and another, each motion both fluid and jerking, like it was remembering how to use a body. Mason screamed and charged. Time fractured. His footsteps pounded against the earth, each one too loud, too final. He swung the knife in a wide arc, a desperate attempt to prove his defiance was worth something. For a split second, I thought he'd done it, that he'd pierce whatever thin skin cloaked that nightmare. But the blade meant nothing. The figure wasn't there anymore. It was behind him. I don't remember seeing it move. 1 second, Mason's knife cut through empty air. The next, the figure was there, looming, its tilted head hovering inches from his shoulder. Mason turned, too slow, and the creature's long arm curled around him like a parent embracing a child. For a horrifying instant, it almost looked tender. Then Mason screamed. Not a human scream, not anymore. It came from deep in his chest, but it was being pulled out, dragged up through his throat like something inside him was being ripped free. His body convulsed, back arching, knife dropping uselessly into the dirt. His eyes went wide, then wider still, and his scream rose higher until it fractured into something that wasn't sound at all. The effigy that looked like him, arms outstretched, shuddered. Its twigs trembled as though invisible fingers rearranged them. And then, before our eyes, the crude figure seemed to tighten, its bark knots pulling together, the outline sharper, fuller. It wasn't a suggestion of Mason anymore. It was him. His stance. His very shape. And Mason himself collapsed. When the creature released him, his body hit the ground like a sack of dry leaves. Hollow. Empty. The knife lay beside him, glinting weakly in the filtered sunlight. His face was frozen in an expression I will never forget, mouth open in a silent scream, eyes glassy and void. Leah screamed his name. Alex curled further into himself, sobbing openly now. Erin whispered, "No, no, no, no," as if denial could reverse it. And me? I couldn't move. My body betrayed me, rooted to the earth. My mind screamed run, 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 but my legs refused. The figure stood over Mason's husk, head tilting further, almost a full 90 degrees now. Its arm reached again, not at Mason this time. At the rest of us. Erin broke first. She darted past me, toward the trees, muttering something like a shield against her terror. Her feet barely touched the ground, her body trembling with pure animal panic. For a second, hope flared. Maybe she'd make it, maybe it would let her go. But the whistles returned. Not many this time. Just one. Low, deliberate. Almost like a warning. And then Erin vanished. Not into the trees, not into the shadows. She simply wasn't there anymore. One moment she ran, her hair streaming behind her. The next, gone. The space she had occupied felt wrong, empty in a way the world should never be empty. Leah sobbed beside me. Alex was shaking so hard his teeth chattered. I forced my eyes away from where Erin had been, back to the effigies. Now there were 6. 1 for Mason. 1 for Erin. 1 for Leah. 1 for Alex. 1 for me. And 1 more. A new effigy stood at the edge of the circle. Smaller. Its stick head tilted, twig arms curled against its chest as though shielding something. It looked like a child. For a long moment, none of us breathed. The clearing seemed to tighten around us, the trees leaning closer, their shadows lengthening until it felt like we stood in the hollow of a throat about to swallow. My gaze locked on the new effigy, the smallest one, the one that had no right to exist. Its twig arms curled protectively inward, almost cradling something invisible. Its body was smaller than ours, its posture fragile. The crude head, nothing more than bundled sticks, tilted down at the same angle the others had, as if its hollow face were gazing toward the earth. A child. A child none of us had brought into this forest. A child that wasn't here. Leah saw it too. Her hand clutched my sleeve until the fabric burned against my arm. Her lips trembled but no sound came out, her wide eyes darting from the effigy to me and back again. She didn't need words. I knew what she was asking. Why? Why is there 1 more? Alex, still curled on the ground, whimpered when his eyes found it. He shook his head violently, like he could unsee it if he denied it hard enough. No, 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 that's not real. That's not us. That's not part of us. His voice cracked into sobs, high-pitched and jagged. But it was real. And worse, it was waiting. The tall figure, the one that had drained Mason, the one that had simply erased Erin, hovered in silence now. Its body swayed slightly, like a tree in a wind that didn't exist. Its limbs hung long and loose, brushing the ground, but its tilted head never moved from us. Watching. Measuring. Waiting. I couldn't take my eyes off the child effigy. Something about it gnawed at me, not just fear but recognition. It was crude, simple, just twigs lashed together, and yet, I felt like I knew it. Not as a person, not as something I'd ever met. But as a shape that belonged, somehow, to me. Like a shadow I hadn't realized I carried. Leah whispered, so soft I almost didn't hear, "It's not done yet." The words burrowed under my skin. Not done. Not finished. Whatever was happening here, whatever this forest was shaping, the process wasn't complete. We were caught in the middle of something that had no intention of letting us walk away. The silence pressed in again. I felt it in my chest, a suffocating weight. Then, without warning, Alex snapped. He bolted upright and screamed, not words, just raw terror, and staggered toward Mason's dropped knife. His hands fumbled, shaking violently, but he got hold of the blade. His eyes were wild, bloodshot, tears streaking his dirt-smeared face. "I'm not dying here," he shrieked. "Do you hear me? I'm not." The whistle cut him off. One long, piercing note that stabbed straight into my skull. Alex froze mid-sentence, the knife shaking in his grip. His head twitched violently, as though pulled by an unseen string. Then he laughed. It wasn't his laugh. It was low, guttural, gurgling, like something trying on the sound of laughter but not quite getting it right. My stomach lurched as Alex's body straightened unnaturally, spine cracking audibly, his head tilting to mimic the effigies. The knife slipped from his hand and dropped to the dirt. Leah screamed. I grabbed her and pulled her back, but my eyes stayed locked on Alex. His face contorted, jaw snapping wide, eyes rolling back. His hands rose into the same crooked position as the effigy that mirrored him. For a moment, I thought we'd lose him right there, that the figure had claimed him, hollowed him out like Mason. But then Alex collapsed. He hit the ground hard, convulsing, froth bubbling from his lips. His body twitched violently, then went still. His chest rose and fell, shallow but alive. He wasn't gone. Not yet. But something had been put inside him, or taken out. And the effigy that bore his likeness shifted again. Its sticks pulled tighter, cleaner, sharper. Less like a bundle. More like a body. "Daniel," Leah whispered urgently. "We can't stay. If we don't leave now, it's going to finish." "But leave where?" Every path led back here. Every escape wound tied her into the snare. And now there were only 3 of us who could move, me, Leah, and Alex, though Alex was more husk than human in that moment. Mason's shell lay broken on the ground. Aaron was simply gone. The clearing felt hungrier than before, as though feeding had only sharpened its appetite. I forced my voice out through a throat like sand. We go now. We drag Alex if we have to. We don't look back." Leah nodded, though her tears hadn't stopped. We hauled Alex between us, his limp body heavy, his head lolling. The tall figure didn't move. It only tilted its head further, deeper, until it seemed its neck would snap. The silence clung to it, the sense of waiting. Like it knew. Like it had already won. We staggered into the trees again, branches clawing, underbrush grabbing at our legs. Every breath burned, every heartbeat a countdown. My ears rang with the memory of whistles even though none came now. It was worse than when they filled the air, at least then we knew where it was. Now it was silence, and silence meant it could be anywhere. We walked for minutes, or hours, or years. Time bent in the forest. My arms ached from carrying Alex, but letting him fall felt like surrender, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. Leah muttered prayers under her breath, the words tumbling out in stutters. Finally, we stumbled into another clearing. My stomach dropped. The river. The stones. The effigies. All 7 now. The child figure no longer looked crude. Its body was refined, sharper, its twig arms curved as though holding something invisible in its chest. Something that hadn't yet arrived, but would. And the figure beside it was Alex. The effigy's stick head tilted downward, as if mocking his unconscious posture in my arms. I realized then what the forest was showing us. The effigies weren't just reflections. They were promises. Previews of what we would become. Each one a marker in the slow erasure of ourselves. Mason had reached his end. Aaron had vanished into nothing. Alex was halfway gone, his effigy growing clearer with every breath. Leah and we were next. The clearing pulsed with silence. And then, from somewhere deeper in the trees, a new whistle sounded. Not shrill. Not mocking. Low. Slow. Almost gentle. A lullaby. And in the shadows just beyond the clearing, something small moved. Something that sounded like a child. At first, I thought it was my imagination filling the silence with something more bearable. A trick of exhaustion, a fever dream whisper inside my skull. But Leah's head jerked toward the sound, and the way her body stiffened told me she had heard it too. It was faint, almost delicate, threading its way through the oppressive stillness of the clearing. A voice. Small. Fragile. Humming. The tune wavered like the breath of someone on the edge of sleep, a lullaby that seemed both familiar and foreign at once. The kind of melody that might drift from a nursery in the dead of night, seeping under the door, making you wonder if you'd left the music box wound or if something else had decided to sing. Leah's nails dug into my arm. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice raw and shaking. "Tell me you hear that too." I wanted to lie. To say no, to tell her it was just her mind playing tricks. But the sound grew clearer, weaving through the trees, circling the clearing as if it were stalking us. I nodded instead, and her face drained of what little color remained. The effigies stood around us, silent witnesses. My eyes found the seventh one, the child, its twig arms curved protectively over nothing. It seemed to lean closer now, angled toward the direction of the humming. The figure, the thing, hadn't moved. It still loomed at the edge of the clearing, tilted head locked on us, limbs slack in waiting. But the lullaby wasn't coming from it. This was different. Softer. Luring. Alex stirred in my arms. His eyes fluttered open, bloodshot and glassy. His lips twitched, and for a heartbeat I thought he might be whispering again, trapped in some fevered dream. But then he spoke, no, repeated, words that didn't belong to him. She's coming. My stomach turned to stone. Who? I croaked, though I already knew I didn't want the answer. Alex's eyes rolled back, his jaw slack. The little one. His voice was flat, hollow, like a puppet with a hand shoved up inside it. Leah clapped her hand over her mouth to stifle a sob. The lullaby grew louder. It circled us in slow spirals, never too close, always just beyond the reach of vision. The air grew colder with it, biting into my skin, carrying with it the damp sweetness of decaying leaves. I knew, in some wordless part of myself, that it wasn't just sound, it was invitation. The forest wasn't simply watching us anymore. It was beckoning. I tried to think, tried to drag reason through the mire of terror. It's not real, I said, though even to me the words sounded pathetic. It's bait. It wants us to follow it. Leah turned to me sharply, eyes glistening with tears. And what if it's not? What if there is a child? What if someone's trapped here like us? Her voice cracked, desperation and guilt bleeding into every syllable. We can't just. Leah, I snapped, harsher than I meant. My fear gave it teeth. Nothing in this place is what it seems. You saw Mason. You saw Aaron vanish. You saw what it did to Alex. Do you really think there's a child wandering around here alone? She flinched, her face twisting with conflict. But the lullaby didn't give her time to argue. It shifted. The voice was closer now. Not circling anymore. Advancing. Each note was clearer, brighter, though the tune itself had grown more dissonant, as if whoever, or whatever, sang was struggling to hold the melody together. It warbled, cracked, then recovered, repeating the same fragment again and again. Alex jolted violently in my arms, his body spasming. He opened his mouth, and the lullaby spilled out of him. The same notes. The same fragile rhythm. I dropped him. My arms recoiled before I could stop myself. He hit the ground with a sickening thud, body twitching, mouth moving though his eyes were rolled fully white. The voice kept coming, from both him and the trees, overlapping in perfect unison. Leah screamed, clutching her head. Make it stop. Daniel, please make it stop. I grabbed her hand and pulled her back, away from Alex, though there was nowhere to run. The effigies loomed on all sides, and the tilted figure still towered, unmoving but impossibly present. I felt it pressing down on us, waiting for us to make the choice it had engineered. And then the humming ended. The silence that followed was worse than any scream. It lingered for 3 heartbeats, long enough for hope to spark that maybe, just maybe, it was over. Then, from the tree line behind the child effigy, came the sound of small footsteps. Soft. Light. Too light. Leah's breath hitched. My body went cold, every muscle locking. We both turned, slowly, toward the sound. And there it was. A figure stepped from the shadows. At first, I thought my brain was rejecting it, filling the space with something less monstrous than what truly stalked us. But no, the forest had chosen to wear the mask of innocence. A little girl stood just beyond the circle of stones. She couldn't have been older than 7. Her hair was tangled, her skin pale as milk, her dress dirty and torn. She held something in her hands, a small, ragged doll missing half its head, and her eyes, wide and unblinking, locked straight onto mine. She smiled. The clearing tilted around me. My niece nearly gave out. Because it wasn't just any child. I knew that face. I had seen it before. In photographs. In Leah's apartment. It was Leah's little sister. The one who had gone missing 5 years ago. For a heartbeat, the world ceased to exist. The trees, the effigies, the tilted figure, all of it dissolved into static in my mind. All I could see was Leah's face. Her eyes widened, her lips parting soundlessly as the little girl stepped into the clearing. The tears that welled up weren't from fear now, but from recognition. Shock. Long-buried grief breaking its cage all at once. Emily, Leah whispered. The name tore itself from her throat like a prayer. The girl tilted her head, and the motion was too exact, too deliberate, too familiar. It was the same tilt the effigies bore, the same crooked lean of the tall figure looming behind them. Yet Leah didn't see that. She only saw her sister. My chest clenched painfully. I'd seen the photos on Leah's refrigerator, on her mantle, tucked into the edges of her mirror. Emily at 5 years old, missing her 2 front teeth, holding a balloon. Emily at 6, grinning in a Halloween costume. Then the photos stopped. No more birthdays. No more milestones. Just Leah's haunted silence whenever the subject arose. And now here she was, standing in a forbidden clearing, years older, but unmistakable. The impossible made flesh. Leah broke from my grip before I could stop her. She stumbled forward, sobbing, her arms outstretched. Emily. Oh God, Emily, it's really you. Leah, no. I lunged, catching her wrist, yanking her back with more force than I meant. She spun on me, eyes blazing with fury and desperation. Don't you see her? She screamed, her voice cracking. Don't you see it's her? She's alive. She's been here this whole time. We have to take her with us. I shook my head violently, my own terror sharpening into anger. That's not her, Leah. It can't be her. You know that. But she tore her wrist free, tears streaming down her face. You don't understand. You never lost someone like this. You don't know what it's like to wake up every day wondering if she's cold, if she's hungry, if she's scared. Her sobs tore through the clearing like jagged glass. If there's even a chance. The girl, Emily, took another step forward. The doll in her hands dangled limply, its one remaining button eye staring at us. Her bare feet made no sound on the earth, though the soil was soft and wet. She smiled wider, her lips parting just enough to reveal teeth that were too sharp, too white, gleaming in the half-light. I felt bile rise in my throat. Leah, I said, my voice low, pleading now. Look at her. Really look. That's not Emily. That's not your sister. It's using her face. But Leah shook her head, refusing to hear me. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest as though to steady her heart, and she whispered again, almost to herself, Emily. The child's gaze shifted from me to her. That smile deepened, twisting into something that was no longer human, no longer innocent. It was satisfaction. Triumph. The effigy of the child behind her seemed to twitch, its twig arms tightening around empty air. Alex stirred again on the ground, his voice hoarse, broken. Don't trust it. His words rasped like sandpaper. It's not a child. It never was. Leah ignored him. She took another step forward, and I panicked. Leah! I shouted, grabbing her shoulders, forcing her to meet my eyes. Please, listen to me. This place shows us what we want, what we fear. That's how it traps us. You know your sister is gone. You've known for years. Don't let it use her to take you too. Her eyes darted between me and the girl. Conflict warred across her face, grief, denial, longing. And then, with a broken sob, she wrenched free of me and ran. No! She bolted across the clearing, arms open wide. The girl's smile widened impossibly as Leah closed the distance. For one sickening instant, I almost believed it might end differently, that Leah would actually embrace her sister, and maybe the nightmare would break. But when Leah reached her, her arms closed around nothing. The girl dissolved into shadows, her shape melting like smoke. Leah's momentum carried her through, stumbling to her knees in the dirt, clutching air. And the effigies shuddered. All of them. Their twig bodies rattled like bones, their stick heads twitching in unison. The sound was deafening, the clatter of dry wood grinding against itself, as if the entire clearing had come alive. The tall figure finally moved. Its long body unfurled, its limbs stretching, joints cracking like splintering timber. It stepped forward into the ring, towering over Leah as she knelt, dazed and sobbing. Its tilted head lowered, almost tenderly, as though acknowledging her surrender. "Leah!" I screamed, rushing forward before I could think, before fear could root me down again. But the ground betrayed me. The earth beneath my feet softened, clinging like quicksand, sucking at my boots. Roots burst upward, coiling around my ankles, holding me fast. I struggled violently, ripping at them, but they only tightened, thorns piercing skin. The whistles returned, high-pitched, shrill, but now layered with something deeper. A groan. A growl. The sound of 1,000 trees bending under invisible weight. And Leah lifted her head. Her face was wet with tears, but her eyes, God, her eyes, were wide, glazed, shining with something terrible. She whispered a single word, her lips curling into a fragile smile. "Emily." The tall figure's arm reached down toward her, its fingers brushing her hair. And the seventh effigy, the child, shifted again. Its twig arms no longer cradled nothing. They cradled a shape. A smaller effigy. A baby. The forest seemed to breathe around us, each tree groaning as though alive, the soil quivering under my trapped feet. My chest pounded with terror as the seventh effigy tightened its spindly arms around the smaller one in its grasp. A baby, made from sticks, moss, and scraps of fabric, rocked gently in the embrace of that wooden child, as if some invisible hand soothed it. The image was grotesque and obscene. The twisted parody of motherhood. And yet Leah stared at it with rapture in her eyes, her body trembling with quiet sobs. I pulled frantically at the roots coiled around my ankles, ripping skin and tearing at the thorns. Pain flared, but I didn't care. "Leah! Don't look at it! Don't let it take you!" My voice cracked against the rising chorus of whistles, the sound coming from every direction, multiplying until it wasn't just a whistle but 1,000 voices calling, crooning lullabies through broken reeds. Leah turned her head slowly toward me. The expression she wore froze my blood. There was no recognition there, only a terrible serenity, the hollow peace of surrender. "Don't you see?" she whispered, her voice thin, distant. "She was never gone. They kept her. They raised her. She's still here, Daniel. She's still alive." The baby effigy's twig hand twitched. Its faceless head tilted. And the child effigy holding it rocked harder, the wooden joints creaking like a cradle's hinges. "No," I snarled, shaking violently, fighting to free myself. "It's a trick, Leah. It's not Emily, it's never been Emily. You saw what happened. That thing disappeared. It wasn't real." But she wasn't listening. She inched closer to the towering figure, the soil shifting under her knees. The thing loomed over her like a priest over a supplicant, its elongated fingers stroking the air above her head. I caught Alex's voice again, weak but desperate, croaking from where he still lay near the edge of the ring. "Don't let her look in its eyes." I froze, staring at him. His face was pale, slick with sweat, but his gaze was sharp, terrified. He clawed weakly at the ground, dragging himself an inch closer. "That's how it takes them," he gasped. "That's how it makes them part of the circle. If she sees it, really sees it, she's gone." The tall figure's head tilted further, bending low, and I realized with sick horror that it was angling Leah's face toward its own. Forcing her to look. "No!" I screamed, thrashing against the roots, my voice raw. "Leah! Don't look at it! Keep your eyes on me!" But she was shaking, her sobs breaking into laughter, hysterical, cracked. She pressed her trembling hands to her chest as if to hold herself together. "Emily," she whispered again. "She's safe. She's been safe all this time. They're showing me. They're showing me the truth." I couldn't breathe. Rage and panic blurred together as I tore at the roots binding me. The thorns shredded my palms, blood dripping down my wrists, but something gave way. One boot tore free. I didn't think. I lunged forward, the other roots still clinging, dragging across the dirt as I hurled myself toward Leah. The ground erupted. Dozens of twig arms shot up from the soil, grasping, clawing, pulling at me, dragging me down. They wrapped around my arms, my chest, my throat. I gasped for air as the smell of damp rot filled my nostrils, the soil pressing into my skin as though the forest itself wanted to devour me. And still, Leah inched closer to the towering figure, her face lifting, her tear-streaked eyes rising to meet its hollow, faceless head. "Leah!" I bellowed, choking against the roots, straining every muscle in my body. "That's not Emily. That's not your sister. That's what took her." For the briefest second, I thought I saw something flicker across her face, doubt, confusion, the tiniest crack in the veil the forest had cast over her. Her hands trembled harder. Her lips pressed into a thin line. The whistles faltered, just slightly, their harmony breaking. The tall figure froze, as though sensing its hold loosening. It leaned closer, its head tilting, urging her silently, willing her to look fully into its void-like face. Alex's broken voice ripped through the clearing again, ragged and fierce. "Leah! If you look at it, you'll never leave. Do you want Emily's fate to be yours too?" Leah's shoulders jerked, her eyes flickering wildly between the towering thing, the effigies, Alex, and me thrashing in the grasp of the forest's roots. Her breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. I just want her back," she whispered. I locked eyes with her, blood dripping from my torn hands, dirt filling my mouth as I strained upward against the roots trying to pull me under. My voice cracked, raw with desperation. "I know you do. But that's not her. That's how they trick you. Please, if you love her, if you love me, don't give them what they want." Her lips parted, quivering. Her eyes brimmed with tears. And then, suddenly, she squeezed them shut, shaking her head violently. "No," she screamed. "You don't get to take me too." The clearing convulsed. The whistles shattered into a hideous shriek, the sound of 1,000 branches snapping at once. The tall figure reeled back, its faceless head twisting unnaturally, as though recoiling from her defiance. The effigy shook violently, their twig limbs rattling in fury, the baby effigy falling limp in the arms of the child. The roots clutching me loosened just enough for me to rip free. I stumbled forward, grabbing Leah and pulling her away from the looming figure. She collapsed against me, sobbing, clutching my shirt with shaking fists. But the forest was not finished with us. The ground beneath the effigies cracked open, a yawning split tearing through the soil. From the darkness below, a fetid wind burst forth, carrying the stench of rot and decay so thick it coated my tongue. And from that fissure, I saw them. Hands. Dozens, maybe hundreds, pale and skeletal, reaching upward. Fingers clawing, grasping, scrabbling at the earth. Faces pressed against the soil just beneath the surface, eyeless, gaping, their mouths opening in silent screams. The lost. The campers who never returned. And among them, for a fleeting, heart-stopping second, I thought I saw her. A little girl's face. Leah's sister. Emily. Her mouth moved soundlessly, forming words I couldn't hear. Then the soil shifted, dragging her back into the abyss, the hands closing over her face. The tall figure straightened to its full height, its faceless head turning toward me and Leah. And though it had no eyes, no mouth, I felt its intent pressing into me with crushing force. We had defied it. And now it was done toying with us. The ground yawned wider, the fissure splitting with a deafening crack, tearing across the clearing like the mouth of some colossal beast. Soil crumbled away, tumbling into the darkness below. That smell, rot and dampness, the sour reek of earth that had swallowed too much flesh, poured out, choking me. The hands multiplied. They clawed at the edges of the chasm, skeletal fingers snapping as they tried to pull themselves upward. Arms thrust from the darkness, some pale and wasted, others shriveled to bone wrapped in scraps of cloth. Faces pressed through the shifting soil, dozens at once, faces of men, women, children, their features warped with terror and despair. Every camper who had ever vanished here. And in the middle of it, looming above the carnage, the tall figure straightened, its limbs stretching unnaturally, impossibly, until it dwarfed the trees themselves. The faceless head tilted down, watching us. No, judging us. I could feel it pressing into my skull like an iron hand, stripping me bare. Rage radiated off it, pure and ancient, as though our defiance had shattered some unspoken covenant. Leah clung to me, trembling so violently her teeth chattered. Her nails dug into my skin. It was her, she whispered, her voice raw and broken. I saw her, Daniel. She was down there. Emily was down there. I know, I gasped, dragging her backward, step by step, away from the widening fissure. The roots still twitched in the soil, writhing like serpents ready to strike, but for the moment they didn't grab us. They were waiting. Listening. Then she's alive. Leah's words came in desperate bursts, as if speaking them could make them true. We can save her, we have to save her. I shook my head, my throat tight, my chest burning. Leah, she's not alive. Not anymore. That's what this thing wants you to think. It's bait. It's how it keeps you here. She jerked back from me, fury flashing in her eyes even through her tears. You don't know that. You didn't see her face like I did. She was calling for me. Her voice cracked, and she sobbed again, collapsing against me before I could respond. I held her tightly, but my own resolve trembled. Because the awful truth was, I had seen her face. I had seen the way her mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear. And a part of me, a small, traitorous part, whispered, what if Leah's right? What if she is still down there? The forest seemed to sense my hesitation. The effigies rattled in unison, their twigged bodies clattering like a chorus of bones. The child effigy tilted its head farther than should be possible, the effigy baby still limp in its arms. The tall figure leaned down again, its limbs folding like broken ladders, lowering itself until its faceless head was almost level with ours. The sound that followed was not a whistle this time, but something worse, an imitation of a child's laughter, high and hollow, echoing in every direction at once. I thought Leah would crumble under the sound. Instead, she stiffened, her sobs silenced, her spine straightening. She lifted her head and stared into the void where the creature's face should have been. And I knew. I knew she was about to give in. No, I rasped, seizing her face in both hands, forcing her to look at me. My bloodied palms smeared red across her cheeks. Don't listen to it. Don't look at it. You're stronger than this, Leah, you are. Do you want to end up like those people down there? Trapped forever? Do you want to leave your sister alone in that place? That last word struck her like a blade. She blinked hard, breath hitching. Alone, she whispered, her voice trembling. Yes. I shouted over the rising groans and rattles of the forest. If you stay here, if you give yourself to it, Emily will always be alone. But if we escape, if we make it out, you can carry her with you. You can honor her. That's the only way she'll ever be free. For a terrible moment, I thought it hadn't worked. Leah's eyes brimmed again, her lips parting, her body leaning toward the towering figure like a moth drawn to flame. Then, with a violent shake of her head, she tore her gaze away, burying her face in my chest. I can't do it anymore, Daniel. Get me out. Please, just get me out. The forest screamed. There was no other word for it. The trees groaned, the effigies shrieked with grinding wood, and the tall figure released a roar like a hurricane tearing through stone. The fissure widened further, swallowing half the clearing. Roots lashed out in fury, striking at us like whips. I threw myself over Leah as one ripped through the air above us, the wind of its passing stinging my face. Another coiled around my leg, dragging me toward the chasm. I kicked and clawed, adrenaline drowning pain, and managed to rip free. "Run!" I bellowed, dragging Leah to her feet. We stumbled toward the treeline, our legs heavy, the ground quaking beneath us. Every step was a battle, the soil sucking at our boots, branches whipping at our faces. The effigies reached for us as we passed, their twig arms snapping in the air inches from our throats. Behind us, the tall figure rose again, towering, its limbs stretching until it was little more than a black silhouette against the night sky. Its faceless head craned back, and from its void came a single, piercing whistle, so sharp, so violent, that I felt blood burst hot from my ears. Leah screamed, clutching her head, stumbling to her knees. I hauled her up, dragging her, my own vision swimming with red. The forest blurred. Branches twisted into faces, the ground shifted like waves beneath us. I could no longer tell if we were moving forward or circling the same cursed clearing. Panic clawed at my chest. Then I saw it, the faintest glimmer through the trees. Light. Not fire, not effigies, real light. A lantern, swaying in the distance. "Leah!" I gasped, pointing, hope sparking in my chest. "Do you see it?" She blinked through tears and blood, nodding faintly. "Yes." It was our only chance. We staggered toward it, every step fueled by desperation, while behind us the forest screamed louder, the tall figure crashing through the trees with each impossible stride. But as we neared the light, I saw something that froze my blood all over again. The lantern wasn't hanging from a branch. It was swinging from the hand of a man. A park ranger. His uniform was torn, his skin pale and waxy, his eyes hollow black pits. He smiled as he lifted the lantern higher, beckoning us forward. And from the darkness behind him, more lights flickered into existence. Dozens of lanterns. Dozens of rangers. All with the same hollow eyes. We hadn't found salvation. We'd run straight into the arms of the lost. The lantern light wavered as the ranger stepped forward, his boots leaving no imprint on the shifting soil. His smile was wrong, too wide, too steady, the kind of grin you'd see painted on a porcelain mask. Behind him, the others emerged one by one, their lanterns swinging in eerie unison. A line of hollow-eyed guardians, uniforms tattered and mold-stained, their name tags worn smooth with time. For a split second, I almost felt relief. My battered brain wanted to believe help had finally come, that we weren't alone in this nightmare. But when the ranger lifted his lantern higher, illuminating his face, hope collapsed in my chest. His skin was waxy, gray-green like something long dead. His lips never moved when his voice emerged. "You shouldn't be here." The words didn't leave his mouth. They seeped from the forest itself, spoken by 1,000 trees at once, echoing from the effigies, vibrating through the soil beneath my feet. Leah whimpered and clutched my arm tighter, burying her face in my shoulder. I staggered back, dragging her with me. But there was nowhere to go. The fissure gaped behind us, hungry and howling. The tall figure loomed to our left, its faceless head tilted, waiting. And to the right, the rangers advanced in perfect formation, their lanterns swaying in rhythm, their black eyes unblinking. "You shouldn't be here," the voice repeated, louder this time. I forced words through my raw throat. "We didn't know, we didn't choose this site. We didn't know it was forbidden." The rangers halted. Their smiles never changed. The one in front tilted his head exactly like the effigies did, a perfect mimicry. His lantern swayed once, twice, then stilled. "You chose," the voice said flatly. The air around us thickened, pressing against my chest, making it hard to breathe. "No," I gasped. "No, we didn't." The ranger at the station, he gave us the map, he told us where to camp. The ranger's smile deepened, the skin at the corners of his mouth cracking like old parchment. And suddenly, with gut-churning clarity, I understood. There had been no ranger at the station. Not a real one. The man who gave us the map, who smiled too long, whose eyes never quite met mine, he had been one of them. A phantom. A lure. The map hadn't led us astray. It had led us exactly where they wanted. Leah must have felt my body stiffen. She looked up, her tear-streaked face searching mine. "Daniel, what does it mean?" I swallowed hard, my throat burning. "It means, it was never about us choosing the wrong campsite. They chose us." Her lips parted in horror, but before she could speak, the ground beneath us groaned again. The fissure widened, and from its depths the chorus of whispers rose louder. Begging. Pleading. "Stay with us, join us, we're still here." The lost campers, forever trapped. The rangers lifted their lanterns higher, and the forest responded. The effigies twitched violently, their twig limbs stretching outward until they formed a jagged, circular wall around us. The tall figure leaned down again, blotting out the stars with its impossible height. "You've seen," the voice thundered, every word vibrating in my bones. "You know." My knees buckled under the weight of it. Leah sagged against me, sobbing. "Daniel, what do they want?" The answer came not in words, but in a vision that seared across my mind. I saw campers from decades past, their tents glowing faintly in the woods. I saw them laughing around fires, hiking trails, sharing drinks. And then, one by one, the forest swallowed them. Their faces blurred, their voices joined the chorus beneath the soil. But one thing was constant, every group had one who resisted. One who tried to fight, to protect the others. The forest always broke them last. "They want us," I whispered, the truth hollowing me out. "They feed on us. They always have." The tall figure bent lower, its faceless head hovering inches above mine. And then, for the first time, its void shifted. It wasn't a blank slate anymore. A face emerged. My face. I staggered back, nearly dragging Leah down with me. My own reflection stared back at me from its black surface, eyes bloodshot, lips trembling, skin streaked with dirt and blood. But the expression it wore was not mine. It was smiling. Leah screamed, clawing at my arm. "Daniel, don't look." I tore my gaze away, my chest heaving, but the image burned into me. The forest wasn't just luring us with ghosts of the past. It was showing us the future. What we'd become. The rangers stepped closer, their lanterns swaying in perfect rhythm. The effigies closed in, their stick limbs scraping the soil. The fissure widened to the edge of my boots, skeletal hands clawing for purchase. We were surrounded. Leah clutched my shirt, her eyes wild. "We can't escape, can we?" she whispered. I wanted to lie. To tell her we'd find a way out, that we'd make it back to the world, that we'd tell people what we saw. But the truth weighed on me like a stone. I couldn't feel the forest's edge anymore. I couldn't remember the path back. Even if we ran, we'd only circle back here. And then I realized, that was the point. There were no unmarked campsites on the rangers' maps. No warnings, no barriers. Because the maps were never meant to keep people away. They were meant to lead people in. The forbidden sites weren't forgotten places. They were traps. Baited hooks scattered through America's forests, waiting for the unlucky ones who trusted the wrong ranger, who strayed from the path. And once you pitched your tent, once you built your fire, you belonged to the forest. The ground beneath me split wider, swallowing the last remnants of solid earth. Leah screamed, clutching me tighter. I wrapped my arms around her, holding on with everything left in me. The last thing I heard before the soil gave way was the forest's voice, calm and final. "You chose the last campsite." The ground collapsed. We fell into darkness.